Hi. A lot of you know that my grandpa passed away this year. For those of you that don't know about it, he was 101 years old. He was a veteran, and he was just an amazing man. There's a lot of things I learned about my grandpa at his funeral that I never knew about him. So I decided to start thinking about this. How can I leave my story behind for people that knew me or in my family? How can I leave my story behind? So I decided to start doing a bunch of videos, put a YouTube page together. So we'll see where it goes. Today, if you're interested, I learned a lot about my dad. I decided to break my mom and my dad's videos up in some series of videos. So, like today, my dad and I visited for a while about his childhood and him growing up through high school and joining the Navy. So if you're interested in something like that, like, subscribe, follow, whatever, and you'll be able to be notified every time I do new videos. I'm also going to throw other videos in of just little adventures that I take and just to leave something behind for my family and friends. Thanks. What was your earliest childhood memory from as young as you can remember?
Oh, my grandma Northrop used to watch me a lot. He spent a lot of time with my grandmother Northrop.
Where was that at?
Oh, all around. I used to spend a lot of time on a farm they had out of Port Orchard over on the coast.
Port Orchard, Washington.
Yeah, Port Orchard, Washington. Yeah,
Where were you born?
North Dakota. I'm one of these famous people from North Dakota.
Because we got a lot of family in North Dakota, don't we?
Yeah, there's still probably is relatives out
From the
there.
family tree that one gal did. I know you said you would spend a lot of time with Grandma Northrop, but tell me about your mom.
Never owned a driver's license in her life. If she walked around the block, she'd be lost.
Really?
Yeah, she was not. My childhood was not a normal childhood.
Mm.
Not like your mom had to educate me. Your mom had to educate me for Christmas, especially for Christmas. I used to get socks, underwear.
Oh.
I remember a cousin one Christmas we were traveling with my stepfather. We're in Florida, and I got a package of gum
Gum.
for Christmas. Yeah, it wasn't a normal childhood.
Yeah.
I kind of had to look out for myself as I grew up. After my father, my father committed suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and I was the one that found him.
Was
We
that
lived.
was that in Florida?
No, that was in Seattle.
Seattle. Oh.
Yeah, that's where we lived. We lived actually. I lived with his brother and his wife, Gus and Emma. They came out for Scott's wedding when Scott got
Yeah, I
married,
remember them.
and he we stayed with them for like quite a while. I think about a year. My dad came out to Seattle to look for a job. He went to work for Bardee Steel in downtown Seattle, and then they uh, sent us. We went on the train to Seattle, then to get together with him. And Gus was not very happy. He took care of us all that time. She never said thank you or anything.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
but
Then you were saying that you were talking about your stepdad. How did he come into the picture?
no, my mother was tending a bar in West Seattle, in Elliott Bay, and She met him there. He was stationed at Fort Lewis.
He was in the service.
Yeah, he was career Army all the way. And yeah, that's where she met him. And then they got married. And we ended up going to Japan on that one. But back to my childhood again, I kind of had to look out for myself. I used to hunt golf balls in the rough and sell them to the driving range, collect bottles, whatever it took to make some extra money for me.
Yeah.
And I used to sell newspapers in White Center. I was just a young kid. Anything that had a door, the guy had a newsstand there, and I used to sell papers for him. I used to go all through White Center and into the bowling alley. Anything that had a door on it swung open. Go in and try to sell a newspaper. And I used to go to the movie there on Saturdays. They had movies back then. At that time was a dime.
Really?
Yeah, it cost us a dime to get into the Saturday show.
What's your first movie you remember going to there?
Creature in the Black Lagoon.
Oh, really? When it first came out?
It was a scary movie.
Was it? That's funny.
So then after I used to cut lawns when we were out of Fort Lewis. I used to fish a lot. So one thing my dad, my biological father, did, he got me started fishing when I was 5 years old. We used to fish, rent a boat at Ray's Boathouse in Seattle there, fish in LA Bay, right? Downtown Seattle, you might say.
What kind of fish were you catching?
Salmon.
Salmon.
And I used to go down and fish for perch. They never watched me very good.
Sounded like you were saying you were pretty much raising yourself.
Yeah, I did. One of the best money-making things we had was a friend of mine and I found out Fort Lewis had call centers for these soldiers. Mm-hmm. And they all had porches, and they had cracks in the porches. We found a way to get underneath. We got underneath the porch, and we found a lot of quarters and nickels and dimes.
Rich soldiers.
Yep, we made a lot of money doing that. Huh. So, yeah.
Interesting. So then, so you said you spent a lot of time with Grandma Northrup. How did she kind of take over for you? And
mainly there was one point she wasn't going to get me back to my mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When we were with my stepdad, every time he was deployed, they used to come and live with us, and that's after Grandpa sold the farm. Mm-hmm. He had a heart attack and had to sell the farm, and they used to come and live with us then. But my mother didn't know how to cut a pie.
Yeah. Is there a story about when you and Mom were?
And I was a senior. I was living with Jerry at the time. It's before I went in the Navy. Jerry and Aunt Billy and Mom and Jim and Greg and Patty were living in the apartment house where Grandma and Grandpa used to live, right across from there. She had to go get Grandma to come and cut the pie. Oh. Yeah, I remember that. But then we went. When he was deployed to Japan, I was just in the 8th grade then, and we went to Japan, and we actually rode a ship. We got on a ship in Seattle, the USS Patrick, and we went from Seattle to Japan.
Really?
On a ship.
Wow.
Yeah, landed in Tokyo Harbor.
What was it like being a kid in Japan?
It was different. There was so I was in the 8th grade. That wasn't too many years after he dropped the atomic bomb on them. Wow. We weren't very well liked.
I'm sure not.
We always, all those holidays, we had protesters the gate of the base, and they always say, "Yankee, go home! Yankee, go home!" And we heard a lot of that.
Yeah.
And the house we lived in there had a foxhole in the backyard.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, all the housing had foxholes in the back.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
but it was. But also when we were over there in the service, then if you're in the States, it was like being poor.
Oh.
You could qualify for welfare just about.
Hmm.
And when we were overseas, we had a houseboy.
Really?
Yeah, on the weekends, and we had a full-time maid.
Hmm.
Yeah, you could afford them then.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. So
then how long did you stay in Japan?
we lived in Japan for about, well, I started I was in the 8th grade when I first went there. And then I went to my freshman year at the American High School in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to ride the bus from Yokota Air Force Base where he is stationed. And I started my sophomore year there. And then he was deployed then to Georgia, Augusta, Georgia. And when we moved, I started my sophomore year in Japan. Then we went to his folks' place in Florida. I lived there for a month and a half. Went to a little dinky school in Laurel Hill.
Laurel Hill.
Yeah, it's up in the Panhandle, you know.
So it's close to
Yeah.
Tallahassee,
Yeah.
that area.
Anyway, I went there, and then he found a place for us in Georgia, I guess. We moved back there, so then that's the third school I went to that year. And back there,
This is all in the time of 1 year.
yeah,
3 schools.
yeah, so far.
Oh.
And back there in Georgia, junior high, you might say, went to 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we got there, he found a house to buy. It was in a different school district. So I had to change schools again in Augusta. So I went to 4 schools my sophomore year.
Wow.
And then my junior year, we were there. And I went to the Academy of Richmond County. Mm-hmm. The South was real big on public military academies.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. We had a uniform. Oh. We had to wear 3 days a week. They assigned us an M1 rifle. Wow. And we had to drill. And we had military classes. And if you screwed up somewhere along the line, that was your discipline. Oh. You had to go out and drill some more.
Yeah, kids complain about school now.
Yep. And I was started in the spring then. I was going to play football there. And when I was in Japan, I played football too in my freshman year. Yeah. I started out, I was in a junior varsity, and they bumped me up to the varsity after that. Junior varsity, we used to play all the Japanese varsity teams.
Oh, really?
And our senior varsity, we used to play college teams.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We never won a game, but
well, no.
they were pretty dirty players too.
Oh, really?
And so anyway, I was going to play football when I was in Georgia. And I had to try out in the spring training. Mm-hmm. And then if they wanted you, if you were good enough, they would invite you. They had a camp in northern Georgia where just like pros or whatever, they'd invite you to that, and then you'd start out playing in your junior year. Well, first weekend of spring training, I got the mumps. Oh no. So that killed my.
You were out.
That killed my football career. So,
Too funny.
and then he got deployed to Korea at the time. And when he went to Korea, we came back to Spokane. And that's when I lived my senior year with Jerry
Yeah.
and Billy, my Aunt Billy, and Mom, and the other kids lived in that apartment where Grandma lived.
Okay.
So, but that's what happened there.
Oh.
And I went to Rogers,
Mm-hmm.
so I graduated. So that was seven schools in my 4 years.
Schools during high school. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And Coach Brown was the coach of the football team at Rogers.
Uh-huh. And
he's right. He wanted me to turn out for football. I said, no. I was too interested in girls in my junior year. And I had to study. And that was weird. Yeah, I had to take Northwest history, which was a freshman subject. When I was senior, yeah. I had pressed Mr. Brown. That was Mr. Can't think of his name. But anyway, he was our Northwest history teacher. I impressed him. He thought I should be trying out to take the test to go to Annapolis.
Oh boy.
I don't think so. Because I'd made like 28 book reports, I think.
Oh boy.
He thought, man, that kid's smart. But
so when did the Navy come about?
I joined the Navy Reserves when I was a junior down in Georgia. In high school, and there was a bunch we joined the Navy Reserves, and that was like it's like getting a paycheck. We got extra money. We got paid for all the meetings.
You remember how much that was back then?
I don't.
How much you would get paid?
Not for that. I don't remember too well.
Yeah.
But I know when I did go in, then I went. So when that summer between my junior and senior year, they loaded a bunch of us on a train, and we went to the Great Lakes in Chicago, out of Chicago.
Where their base was?
Yeah, it's still a Great Lakes Naval Training Station. And so then I do remember we did get the weekend off. We were up there for 2 weeks was all. And then we got a weekend off to go into Chicago, a day off.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was on a Sunday. We went in there. And that was really weird. It was when the bars all closed up on Saturday night. And you could see when we got on the bus and we were going through Chicago, you could see the streets were just lined with the alcoholics waiting for the bars to open again. Yeah. So then I went. So that's where I joined the Navy Reserves. And I always thought that's why your mother went for me, because she liked me in my whites.
Too funny.
Yeah.
So then after you joined the Navy Reserves in Georgia and everything, then you came back to Spokane.
Yep. When I graduated.
Yeah.
The 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks, maybe not that much. I was in Seattle getting sworn in and for physical to go on active duty.
Okay.
And I went to Treasure Island in San Francisco. It's where they deployed everybody through there on the West Coast.
Yeah, and then how long were you there before you were deployed?
Well, I was there for
So back to that. So you went to Treasure Island.
And I was there, and they interviewed you. And your dad was actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
They wanted me to, they said, you qualify for electronics technician school. Would you like to go? And I was still wet behind the ears. They recommended me for electronics technician school.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a year school.
Yeah.
And So then they asked me if I wanted 2 weeks leave. I want to go. Yeah, I'll go. I'll take
That's a-
2 weeks
That's
leave.
a tough choice.
So I went home for 2 weeks, and anyway, I went home for 2 weeks, and came back then to Treasure Island, and I started my school. I went through basic math, and I was starting the next week in school.
Yeah.
Some guy came in from the personnel office, said, "Hey, they want to see you in the personnel office." I got there, so I went over there, and they wanted me to sign extension papers for a year.
Hmm.
I don't want to do that. That's because the percentage of flunk outs are really high. And I would have still had that year to go in there. And I said, no, I don't think so. So they got pissed off at me.
Oh, no.
Had to go back to the receiving side of it. Got interviewed again. And then they wanted, well, what kind of ship do you want? And I wanted like a ship that was in the harbor all the time. They put down destroyer, escort, radar, picket ship, ships that went out for a month or so, you know. And then Japan was the next place they deployed me. That's what they put down Japan, and because I think I forget what I asked for there, but they put down places like that will get you.
Yeah, they're pretty pissed at you.
Yeah. So I ended up getting deployed to Japan. They screwed up my orders. Somebody, I don't know if they did it on purpose or not. But when I got to Japan, I wasn't on I was supposed to go with that refrigeration ship off the bat.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up on a coastal minesweeper.
Okay.
As that little wooden boat.
Was it the Widgeon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. MSC 204. And it was only 128 feet long.
Wow.
And it was like a cork out there. It's the only time I ever got seasick in the Navy. It was on the helm too.
On that little tiny boat.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Ship, little tiny ship. It was actually, I went in 59, and that ship was actually built in the early 50s. It was only several years old. Pretty new, yeah. There's only 32 people on it total, and which included the captain and the executive officer, 2 boot ensigns, you call them, that were engineering, and there was 2 of us on the deck force. Oh, there's 3 of us. I was on the deck force when I first went in. When we were underway, one of them was new signaling, and he was on the bridge half the time.
Oh, I see.
So we did that, and used to stand officer to the deck watches in port, a little ship like that. But we got a lot more freedom than most of them did.
I bet.
Yeah.
That small of a
We
crew.
had overnights and 72-hour 2 and 3 day passes.
Wow.
When we're in port there. And there were a lot of guys, the bigger ships that came into port, that you had to be up chief petty officer or a higher officer. In fact, we had myself and 2 other guys. We rented a place from a Japanese family.
Oh.
It was like living in your living room.
Oh, wow.
All it was between us was sliding paper doors.
Funny.
And it used to cost us $10 a month.
Wow.
1,000 yen.
Wow.
No, it wasn't that much. 1,000 yen. 360 yen to $1. So it was like $3
Wow.
back then.
Huh.
And she used to pick all our laundry up and take it to laundry for us. And yeah. And so when we went on the beach, we had civilian clothes there. we put our civilian clothes on, and most of those people thought we were officers.
Oh, funny.
So yeah, they really kiss up to you.
Oh, that's funny.
So
So that was back in '59, you said?
yep, yep,
So when did you and Mom get married?
61.
61. So
I graduated in 59, and I was in 59. I got out in May of 61.
So was Mom waiting for you, or
I
did
guess.
did you guys date before you left?
We had been out. She asked me to Sadie Hawkins dance. And
Uh huh.
I actually had another girlfriend before that.
Oh. Huh. So she asked you to Sadie Hawkins dance.
Yeah, we just got, yeah.
Did
Then
she write you when you
Oh yeah,
were gone?
she wrote to me and I wrote to her.
Nice.
But
So then so in '59, then you were in Japan. What happened next between then and when you came home?
well, when I went on board the refrigeration ship, it was an old refrigeration ship from World War II, and they were renovating it. So when I first went in, I was on deck force until I got in supply as a storekeeper striker, and I got involved in the renovation. I got involved in stripping all the asbestos off the steam pipes on the winches and rewrapping them with new.
Oh,
Yeah.
back then when nobody knew about asbestos.
Yep. You didn't wear gloves or masks or any of that crap, you know. But anyway, that's, and when I come home and I got married your mother, we started raising our family.
Okay.
I started having problems through my whole life that
Yeah.
nobody could
Maybe
explain.
that was back to the asbestos.
Well, it has to be because they've given me my disability with them now. It's 100% service connected.
Yeah.
So
And we'll get to that probably in another video. But,
yeah,
So you came home, and you and Mom got married. You remember when you asked her to marry
yeah,
you?
I do.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was. Remember, we were parked at the Washington Water Power building where the pond is at.
Yep.
On the river.
Yep.
That's where I asked her.
Right there.
Yep.
And did you plan it ahead of time? Did Mom know
I
it was
did.
coming?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, she knew it was going to happen, but
We'll ask her in her video.
yeah, and yeah, that's where.
Here's an important question. Did you ask Grandpa ahead of time before you went and asked Mom?
I don't think I did.
Oh, geez, Dad.
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I don't remember if I did.
Okay.
But
That's super important to dads these
I remember
days.
where we went to when we got married. We were going to get married at Emmanuel Presbyterian Church on Northwest Boulevard, across the street from the Audubon School.
Yep.
And your mother wouldn't do it. She was afraid to walk down the aisle in front of all those people.
She was.
She was so big. She was pretty timid.
Funny.
And then we ended up going to Coeur d'Alene.
Uh-huh.
We got married in the Presbyterian church there. We didn't go into the quickie place there.
Kitchen post?
No, we didn't go there. We got in. We went in. We went and we took our friends with us.
Yeah.
Glenn and Shirley and I forget who it was. Mom had. But anyway, we went there. We had flowers left over from a funeral that day.
Huh.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That saves some money.
We didn't have a fancy wedding.
Yeah.
And then we went to Grandma and Grandpa's house for a reception.
Okay.
And I think we got $90-something in cash.
Wow. A lot of money back then.
That had to do me for a week that I was off. Because when we were first married, I worked in the grocery store. When they took my medical insurance out, I cleared $37 that week.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was that? 61?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Crazy.
And I was working quite a few hours.
Huh. And
I,
so
I start, huh?
how much was it again?
When they took my medical insurance out, I cleared $37.
$37. Wow.
But our rent was only like $50.
Well, that's awesome. All right.
But